Hey guys, my name is Satya Mukunda, and today I'll be talking about sentiment analysis. So, what is sentiment analysis? Basically, it's how AI figures out emotions in text. For example, when you leave a review or tweet or comment on an Instagram post, somehow the company or the brand instantly knows if you're happy or mad about that comment. That sentiment analysis. So, what is it? Let's give you an introduction. In plain English, it just teaches computers to read emotions. It's part of natural language processing, and it tries to figure out if something sounds positive, negative, or neutral. You see it all the time in, I guess, customer feedback reviews, product ratings, basically anywhere there's an opinion to be made. And it helps company measure how people feel, not just what they say. So now let's get into a brief history of it. So we'll start off in the 90s. Start off super simple. It was rule-based, which pretty much means its systems just matched keywords. For instance, if a sentence had good or love, it was marked positive. And if it had like hate or a bore, it was negative. Then in the 2000s, machine learning really came around and it started learning from examples. And the way it did this is it was based off of labeled data. Then in 2010, deep learning took it a bit further. This really added to context and tone started mattering. And now we have LLM where you don't really need to train anything. You just tell it, analyze this, and boom, insights immediately. So, how does it work? Each step added more understanding. Rule base was about words, then machine learning was about patterns. Deep learning started understanding contexts, and now LLMs can even handle tone, nuances, and sometimes sarcasm. It's a massive leap, I would say, from just counting one, two good words, one bad word, to almost simulating understanding of emotions. Now we'll dive a little deeper into rule-based sentiment. So pretty much what rule-based sentiment does is uses lexicons. It was built on it, which what these are dictionaries of words tagged as positive, negative, neutral, so strong positive. Some of the ones I've learned about were the Macquarie Semantic Orientation Lexicon, or Reeves Subjectivity Dictionary. Found these off of the Annual Review of Linguistics. And pretty much what these two did was they assigned it by polarity and strength, like strong positive, a weak positive, weak negative. And these systems didn't really understand meaning beyond words. They were like the training wheels, I would say, of natural language processing. And even to this day, a lot of modern systems use these lexicon-based approach, but They just combine it with machine learning for context. So then we come into machine learning. Pretty much, instead of relying on static lists of words, they started learning from data. We feed them thousands of reviews that were already labeled, and the model would find patterns that predicted sentiment. Some common algorithms were the naive Bayes or naive Bayes. I don't know how you say that, but we learned it in the SQL class. Then logistic regression, probably all heard of that, and support vector machines. And what these models could pretty much do is pick up subtle cues, like if the word not appears before a positive word, the meaning flips. That sounds obvious to us, but for a model, that's the difference. It's pattern recognition or literal word matching. Hello. Then deep learning gets involved and pushes things even further with models like LSTMs. They can understand word order and context. And this is really where the stage where AI really gets better at understanding how humans actually speak. It was trained on tons of data, but it learned more about abstract relationships between these words. And this is also machine learning is also when sentiment analysis started becoming more reliable enough for real business use cases. Then we have LLMs. Now, instead of building your model, you just talk to one. In this instance, we have chat classify this review as positive, neutral, or negative. And chat answers this review as negative. I wouldn't necessarily do it like that if I was in a business, but that was a small example. You probably would use the things we learned about in this class. You give it a role, give it context, give it detail, and so much more. But now LLMs are able to read billions of texts and handle like tone, slang, sarcasm, even like multi-language sentiments. So what that means is it switches back and forth. Mm, they can also understand like phrases like that's mid or this slaps. Something older models probably would have missed, or not probably, but would have missed. And, and while I was researching this, I found that the accuracy is higher than it's ever been, and sometimes in certain scenarios and controlled cases, it's over 90%. However, a con to LLMs is it takes a more computing power, and running them at scale can be pricey. And now researchers are combining LLMs with emotion analysis. So what I mean by that is not just positive or negative, really, but deeper emotions like anger, joy, fear. So that's where things are headed beyond sentiment towards emotional intelligence and text. And I think that's really where this sentiment analysis becomes more conversational, human like customizable. I think with that, if you input that into LLMs, you're pretty much talking to another person. Like right now, it's gotten to the level where it gives you answers, gives you correct answers. But if they can get this to work, it'll feel like we're just talking to another person like it's a friend almost. Not almost. It would be a friend at that point. Okay, so back on topic. Why sentiment analysis? What are the benefits? Pretty much, companies really don't want to manually read 100,000 reviews. Takes too long. You use a lot of people, and time can be better spent. Sentiment analysis gives you a high level snapshot. All right, what's working? What's annoying the customers? How do people feel after our product launch? It just saves time, gives insights into the real time. And it's not just faster, I would say it's smarter at decision making because it's more logical in this sense. So where do we really see businesses using this? We see them using this in a voice of customers, customer service experience, product experience, brand. You can read the rest. And let's just give it. So voice of customer, tracking how people feel after using a product or service. Or for customer service when to detect frustration before it becomes frustration or a bad review. Because bad reviews like that can spiral. And seeing which features are hated or loved, so in the next improvement or next release, they can improve it. And sentiment analysis is basically a brand's emotional radar. But that's enough of that. What are some challenges that we still have? Sarcasm, emojis, slang can still throw models off. They're better than before, but they still can't. For instance, if someone comments a skull emoji to a picture you post, what does that mean? Does that mean they're laughing? Does that mean they hate it? Depends on the context, how well you know the person, all that. So these models can really understand text, but they still struggle with intent. And I think the next big thing after all this would be multimodal sentiment analysis. Pretty much combining text, audio, facial data is the next step. So now we're gonna get into some cases, use cases of these of sentiment analysis. I got this case study from Thematic, and pretty much they analyzed 130,000 reviews of banking apps from Google Play and the App Store. They found that mobile check deposit was the biggest driver of satisfaction. So when these banking apps had the mobile check deposit feature, people loved that. They also found JP Morgan had the most positive mentions for apps. The interesting they found was iPhone users were more negative, mostly because there were more login bugs. This just shows how sentiment analysis can pinpoint what's working, what's not just that people are unhappy, but why they're unhappy. And so move on to Nike. So pretty much, uh, to start off, I got this from Geeks for Geeks. Pretty much, they talk about Nike launching a new line of running shoes, and these running shoes were aimed at a younger audience under 30. And they really wanted to know how people felt or how their consumers felt. So they analyzed Instagram comments because this is a younger audience. And they did this for the last month using a sentiment analyzer. They found 60% positive, 30% neutral, 10% negative in these comments of the product. Positive comments really praised comfort, design, while negative, what is one negative thing everyone says? It's too expensive. Negative was about price. So what did they do? The next release, they're working on that. They made the shoe a little cheaper so they could sell it at a cheaper price. And they drove it a little to more shops, which allowed for more availability. But this is how social media gives live feedback that servers would miss. But this is also a perfect example of how sentiment analysis really changed the game for Nike. They for the next release, they fixed their problems, or they fixed those specific problems. Next, I want to talk about Super Size Me. Hopefully you've watched it. If you haven't, it's pretty much Matthew Spurlock goes on a documentary of eating only McDonald's for 30 days straight. Let's just say he got some health problems from it, and he didn't really feel the best after it. So after this documentary released, McDonald's UK profit dropped to the lowest level in 30 years. And though this isn't really AI analysis or sentiment analyzer, it just shows how human emotions affect markets at a scale. Shows how public sentiment shifts even without algorithms. And last but not least, Elon Musk. Pretty much in 2020, Elon Musk tweeted, Tesla stock is too high, IMO. That one tweet caused Tesla's market value to drop by 14 billion in one day. This was probably, if not one of the reasons, if they didn't already do it, hedge funds and financial analysts started tracking social media sentiment using these AI resources, using these sentiment analyzers, basically showed real-time emotion predicting real world money. So to wrap it up, sentiment analysis has really come a long way. Went from counting words to now reading tone and emotions almost. It helps businesses, researchers, investors make better decisions that they maybe couldn't have made, all based on how people feel. And again, most of what I covered comes from the Maddox overview on sentiment analysis, Geeks for Geeks, and the annual review of linguistics, as well as CIS 505 and CIS 591 PowerPoint slides. But yeah, the next time you post something online, just remember somewhere out there, and an AI might be quietly judging your vibe. And thank you.